plotting against me. Fucking with our business.
Tariq, you'll have to take out Carter.
I'm fucking tired of those motherfuckers thinking they can stand against me.
Fuck you gonna do now, Tariq?
Hi and welcome to Butter Movies. Effie's mother, played by the sopranos Drea de Matteo, ambushes her on the Stansfield campus, calls her Josie, and announces that her husband has left her for some young bimbo that works at the car company. She says she's broke and is wondering if Effie can float her some money. The man that molested me left you, Effie says flatly. Sounds like AF, can you problem? Her mom continues to gush about how proud she is of Effie, but it doesn't land. If you were on fire, Effie says, I wouldn't piss on you to put you out. She says some more in the same gist, which causes her mom to drop the nice act. There she is, cold-hearted Josefina, she says, you're a real bitch. How is anyone ever gonna love you? Effie delivers the fake social media history to Kane for approval, but all he wants to talk about is how she has the wrong idea about him and Noma. She laments that she's always had to take care of herself, to which he replies, I've got you. Braden moves out of Tariq's place, saying he's going to move in with Elle, because he loves her. Tariq mocks him, saying he barely knows her. They argue a bit more about what Braden's doing with their various business enterprises. I'm moving fast and smart, and T's working, Braden says. But when he arrives at Elle's room, he finds her unresponsive after doing some cocaine. At the hospital, a doctor tells Braden that the cocaine Elle took was laced with fentanyl, which sent her into cardiac arrest. Full reminder of what makes the show so engaging, even as we approach the final stretch of the series. One standout element was the introduction of Carter as a villain. In contrast to previous antagonists like Jukebox or Ray Ray from OG Power, who were ruthlessly cold-blooded and unhesitant about killing innocents, Carter is driven by a warped sense of righteousness. His belief in his own moral high ground makes him a particularly compelling villain, and it's a shame we didn't get to see him in this role earlier, given this is the final season of Ghost. There's so much potential in his character that feels rushed with the season's limited time. The episode did a commendable job tying together various plotlines, a feat that the show manages well. The interconnectedness of characters has been a strong point, making the story feel cohesive. While some may disagree, I appreciate how rarely the characters feel disconnected from each other. In the mid-season premiere, Tariq brutally stabs Zion, leaving him barely clinging to life before ultimately shooting him to finish the job. Meanwhile, Diana faces a terrifying ordeal of her own. After refusing to cooperate with Officer Felicia's scheme, she is violently assaulted. The situation is even more distressing because Diana is pregnant, and the attack specifically targets her stomach, heightening the danger and emotional intensity of the scene. Michael Rainey Jr. previously explained that he felt it was unrealistic for Tariq to be involved in major physical fights while attending college. However, this time, Rainey Jr. believed the situation was different, as Tariq was forced into a life-or-death situation where he had to kill Zion. He shared how this heightened the stakes and how ready he was to mentally and physically prepare for the intense scene, understanding the gravity of the moment for his character. Well, I was just thinking, Tariq needs to do what needs to be done. You get what I mean when I say that if you got to stab up some people, then stab up some more? I was only about ready. I thought, damn. Pretty soon, Jackson and Effie are summoned to Noma's, and they both are shocked to hear the big news. Our nuptials need to appear rock solid, so any dalliance between you two is now over, Noma informs Effie. Adding insult to injury, Noma instructs Effie to create a social media profile for Kane so he looks legit. Effie acts like she doesn't care. Since Noma won't help Tariq and company take down Carter, they pivot. New plan is to give Carter all of their leverage on Noma. And for that, they need Davis' help, and after some initial hesitance, he declares his allegiance is with them. He lets them know that Aircraft Global, a front business, washes her drug money. But she's under too much scrutiny in Europe, so she needs an American citizen to own the front so she can get the government contracts she wants. And a prenup will protect her assets. Davis tells them about Sterling Reynolds, who works in the Commerce Department. Float that name by Carter, he'll have all the leverage he needs, he says. Tariq and Monet meet with Carter and Drew to give him the intel on Reynolds. But he doesn't care, telling them that nothing has changed about their situation. On the way out, Monet makes sure to remind Drew that her blood runs through his veins. You are a Tejada, no matter what. And when Drew shows up to run Carter's undercover fight club the next day, he finds out that someone bought the building, and a note left for Drew lets him know it was Kane and Noma. So Drew breaks into his brother's apartment, correctly guesses the password for his computer, and logs into his iMessages to see that there's a gun shipment arriving that evening. Carter's task force, led by Nico, interrupts Noma's gun shipment. And as Kane spins out upon hearing the news, he gets a text from Drew, "Sorry about your guns, sad face." Side note, surprised, delighted by Drew's use of the frowny emoticon here. Meanwhile, Davis interrupts Noma's dinner with Sterling with a note the lawyer passes her under the table. "Carter has eyes and ears on you. Dinner's over." They bail soon after, to the extreme frustration of the crooked detective, who's watching in a surveillance van outside. In the car on the way home, Noma realizes I have to neutralize the mother-f***er. So Noma and Kane meet up with Nico, who demands 7. As if things weren't bad enough already for Tariq, Braden, and the Tejadas, it got a lot worse in episode 7 of Power Book 2, Ghost Season 4. The episode begins with Diana in the hospital as she discovers that Felicia's brutal attack on her resulted in the death of Tariq and Diana's baby. Though he initially sought revenge from her, Tariq decided against it, but Diana went through with it and eventually kills Felicia. Her dead body is discovered by Detective Cater after he rushed to Felicia's home in hopes of saving her. Carter walks into the house to see Diana, Tariq, and Monet where it comes close to killing them all. Thankfully for them, Drew's decision to help Carter after his release from prison is what saved Diana, Tariq, and Monet's. As for what happens next, well, that will be on display in episode 8. Here's what you need to know about it. Tariq and Monet try to leverage a way to get out from under Carter by making a play to Noma. Positioned on opposite sides, Kane and Drew compete for the streets. An incident with Braden's relationship with Il sends him off the deep end as he goes from puppy to pitbull. On this week's Power Book 2, Ghost, we learn that Kane and Noma are getting married. What is that registry going to look like? Noma's tap dance to secure a government contract without getting caught by the feds is second only to Carter's fancy footwork as he tries to convince Nico that Felicia died in a car crash and not in a heinous beatdown in her own kitchen. How long, do you think, before this all blows up in his face? Oh, and a Sopranos alum shows up as Effie's mom. Carter tells his team that Felicia died in a car crash, but Nico doesn't believe him. What the F.K. really happened, he whispers once he has Carter cornered at the precinct. Monet doesn't want to leave the business because it's all she knows. It's scary to start over. We watch Tariq have to sweep a floor with disgust for a single shift and then balk at the idea of a life spent in honest work. Even if her intentions are in the right place, this belief that Monet can balance the business and her family in some new way feels misguided at best. And it got off to the worst start possible. For all those who knew there was something majorly off about Detective Carter, I'm currently slow clapping in your honor because not only is that man dirty, but he's also unwell. Carter has been laser-focused on Tariq and Monet, and while he appeared to be after them because he wanted to rid the streets of drugs and make New York a safer place, he had a rather twisted agenda. Monet and Drew had no choice but to agree, but Carter's cockiness was next level for a man who had just laid all his cards out on the table in front of a woman who would now make it her sole mission to bring him down. Of all the ways I saw this Carter storyline going, this was not. Monet and Drew's gang, excluding Ice, who was slain by Carter, have to give him 35% of their earnings and promise not to kill any people in order to avoid being arrested and facing possible jail time or even death. Tariq was first opposed to Diana's desire to keep her kid, but he eventually comes around to the notion after going on an acid trip. He must first come to an understanding with Diana because the two are at odds about Tariq's involvement in the drug trade while simultaneously becoming a father. Kane and Noma's romance continues, while Braden's own becomes the subject of a big argument between him and Tariq. Tariq learns two things when he finds Braden and tells him what happened. 1. He's using cocaine backstage, and 2. L is well informed about their company. Tariq is not pleased with either outcome. There, he gets into a disagreement with Braden, who says that Tariq's problems always outweigh any negative things that may be happening in his own life. But when Elle confesses that she put some acid in Tariq's water bottle earlier that night, all of Braden's animosity toward his friend is forgotten. Monet calls a family meeting, saying they need a reset, even though Kane is unwilling to get past the fact that Drew and Diana tried to have her killed. If I can forgive them, Kane, you can too, Mama Tejada points out. He can't, and he leaves, but not before telling Diana that having her baby will be the worst decision she has ever made. Monet wants them to cut all the outsiders out and focus on their family, but Drew wants nothing to do with the Tejadas, and he leaves, too. When it's just the Tejada women left, Monet promises that she'll leave Diana to make her own decision about the future of her pregnancy, then outright says that the baby might be a chance for a fresh start to do family the right way. After Monet apologizes to Drew, he agrees to help her get some product to restart the business, which she promises will support the family, and not the other way around. So he recruits some soldiers and forms a plan to steal some of Noma's product to prime the pump. And truly is in what they're doing. Everything Monet is doing feels too late. The damage has been done, and she's dealing with adults with their own lives and ambitions. They no longer feel the pressure and need to conform to their mother's wishes. Kane's got his own thing going on. Diana's been saying she's out and being with child, there's less insistence she put herself in danger. And Drew, well, he's always had one foot out the door, and he's ready to move the hell on now. Props to Drew for being the one person to hold Monet accountable. He's said what he's felt, and he's made her work for his forgiveness, which was something he didn't have to extend to her in the splitting ultrasound photos. Not to mention Tariq lying to her face about Salim. It was shocking to hear Tariq come out and tell Diana his plans to be the big dog in town, as if that was supposed to impress her or excite her after all the loss she'd recently incurred and the danger she'd been in. These two trying to navigate their relationship with zero trust or affection and then successfully co-parent in the future seems like something that will never happen. It makes you wonder whether Tariq will rethink his plans for total bloodshed. Hint, the answer is no. Diana was not the only Tejada with a choice to make. Monet decided that she was finally ready to step up, put on her world's best mom hat, and reunite a family that had been fractured beyond repair. Power shows can be so comical in the way they have people ready to fight to the death and then turn around soon after that and have them talking about the depth of familial bonds and the need for everyone to put aside attempted murder and come together for the greater good. Much like Tariq, she had a decision to make about her next move, and just like Tariq, she chose the business, though she sprinkled in some talk about the business being second to family that I don't believe for a second. Monet doesn't want to leave the business because it's all she knows. It's scary to start over. We watch Tariq have to sweep a floor with disgust for a single shift and then balk at the idea of a life spent in honest work. Even if her intentions are in the right place, this belief that Monet can balance the business and her family in some new way feels misguided at best. And it got off to the worst start possible. For all those who knew there was something majorly off about Detective Carter, I'm currently slow-clapping in your honor because not only is that man dirty, but he's also unwell. Carter has been laser-focused on Tariq and Monet, and while he appeared to be after them because he wanted to rid the streets of drugs and make New York a safer place, he had a rather still part of the show and universe at large, but it's oddly perfect to keep her hidden mostly, only bringing her out when the story really calls for it. With only a handful of episodes left, it's a nice reminder that everything Tariq's working for is to get back to his mother and sister so he can be there for them and protect them. That's the ultimate endgame, and he's never wavered on that. Tariq wanted to add Carter's whole crew to his body count, but Tasha reminded him to consider whether his actions would bring him closer to his goal. And it's the truth. Living his life impulsively like that would be a surefire way to get sidetracked. There are other ways to support Diana outside of killing cops. It was low-key nice to hear someone understand Diana the way Tasha seemed to, considering she doesn't know Diana personally like that. But she does know what it's like to feel like Diana. To be surrounded by domineering men and people who say they want to protect you, but it feels much more like a form of control. And on top of that, they don't even do it correctly. Diana woke up in the hospital devastated, and all she had was Tariq there, someone who once again made her a promise that they couldn't keep. I don't blame her for wanting to take matters into her own hands, even if going after Felicia alone was a horrible idea. How many times have we seen these men make terrible decisions time and time again? Just acting purely out of pure emotion with misguided intentions. Diana did that when she went after Felicia with Monet's gun. She was hopped up on pain and adrenaline, and all she could think about was hurting the person who hurt her. We've seen Diana get her hands dirty before. It's not like she's immune to it, though people want to treat her like a damsel in distress at times, because she's chosen not to be as integrated able. So, she makes it clear to Tariq that his plans won't work for her and their child. Just like Drew, Diana is set on putting herself first and prioritizing her wants and needs. This means putting herself and her future child above the needs of her family for once. In order to do that, Diana can't compromise for the sake of Tariq. If Tariq can't make the necessary sacrifices in order to create a safe life for their child, then there's no point in Diana trying to make things work. We saw how things ended with Ghost as well as with Lorenzo and Dante Emeka. Diana doesn't have to be the next to experience it. The moment we knew would come finally arrived for Tariq in Power Book 2, Ghost Season 4, Episode 5 titled Ego Death. Actually, it was two moments. The first is Noma finally caught on to Tariq and Braden's underground drug operation through college parties. She discovered it after finding a bag of coke in her daughter Anya's bag after the same bag of coke was brought to her and said to have come from Stansfield. Noma walks into the next college party with Kane to see the operation live in action, and though their plan is to kill Tariq, they're forced to put a stop to it after Tariq uses Anya as a distraction. The second moment is Tariq finally accepting that he is no different from his father. After a string of events that knocked him off his path, Tariq realizes that he needs to use his dad's qualities to become an apex predator to stand at the top of the drug game and ensure the safety of himself and loved ones like Braden and his mother Tasha. Despite this realization, Tariq still doesn't fully see how similar he is to Ghost. Just like his father, Tariq is quite inconsiderate to the needs of loved ones around him, and he can't seem to prioritize their issues as he does his own. When Braden voices his issues during an argument with Tariq, they get brushed aside as Tariq tells him to take this *T on the chin like I do every day. Later on, Tariq expects Diana to be okay with him being deep in the drug game as they raise their child, as opposed to pretending to be out of it like Ghost did. In each case, Tariq put his needs and desires above Braden's and Diana's without considering Monet nearly lost 2 more children in episode 4 of Ghost as both Kane and Tariq were in pursuit of Drew and Diana, respectively, in retaliation for trying to kill Monet and set up Tasha for a death of her own. When Monet learned of Diana's pregnancy, she immediately called off Kane moments before he would have killed Drew, and she also convinced Tariq not to do the same to Diana. Now, it's time to put the family back together, but Monet wants to do it the easy way. The drug game is what tore her family apart, but now, Monet is hoping that it can bring her family back together. Realistically, that is the easy route towards rebuilding the family. All Monet knows is the game, and she's leaning on that to fix her past mistakes and right her wrongs with the Tariq has had to clean up messes he made. Not too long ago, he expressed his desire to leave and returned for Tariq, but Tariq was right to question Braden's genuine commitment to their work. One of Tariq's worst traits is his limited perspective on the world, which stems from his incapacity to look beyond his own existence. He has no idea how to be a love partner or a friend to anyone. You could argue that he sort of understands what it is to be a son, but it would be too obvious, so I couldn't type it without scowling. One thing you can appreciate about Braden, though, is that he and Tariq can have a knockout, heavyweight fight, but the second Tariq was in trouble, Braden went running. Braden's taste in women is so awful. Elle seems like a decent girl who's been dealt a lot, and it's true that this is a crime, but in 2024, we don't try to make people loosen up by giving them drugs. Although it was kind of them to provide Elle with a more complex storyline than just the girl these two were trying to kill one another a few hours ago, and now they're splitting ultrasound photos? Not to mention Tariq lying to her face about Salim. It was shocking to hear Tariq come out and tell Diana his plans to be the big dog in town, as if that was supposed to impress her or excite her after all the loss she'd recently incurred and the danger she'd been in. These two trying to navigate their relationship with zero trust or affection and then successfully co-parent in the future seems like something that will never happen. It makes you wonder whether Tariq will rethink his plans for total bloodshed. Hint, the answer is no. Diana was not the only Tejada with a choice to make. Monet decided that she was finally ready to step up, put on her world's best mom hat, and reunite a family that had been fractured beyond repair. Power shows can be so comical in the way they have people ready to fight to the death and then turn around soon after that and have them talking about the depth of familial bonds and the need for everyone to put aside attempted murder and come together for the greater good. Much like Tariq, she had a decision to make about her next move, and just like Tariq, she chose the business, though she sprinkled in some talk about the business being second to family that I don't believe for a second. Monet doesn't want to leave the business because it's all she knows. It's scary to start over. We watch Tariq have to sweep a floor with disgust for a single shift and then balk at the idea of a life spent in honest work. Even if her intentions are in the right place, this belief that Monet can balance the business and her family in some new way feels misguided at best. And it got off to the worst start possible. For all those who knew there was something majorly off about Detective Carter, I'm currently slow clapping in your honor because not only is that man dirty, but he's also unwell. Carter has been laser-focused on Tariq and Monet, and while he appeared to be after them because he wanted to rid the streets of drugs and make New York a safer place, he had a rather twisted agenda.